There's a clear double standard between the left and the right. Behavior that you only see on the left and not the right. If you need further proof that there's a double standard, that the left has brainwashed society, look no further than Florida. The fraud going on in Florida as an acceptable solution to our election process is the last straw. How, after 4 days, are the same two counties that we've repeatedly had trouble with in the past still able to say their election is not final? How is that possible? How is that okay? As I speak to you, Florida's Secretary of State has officially declared a recount for governor and United States Senator in Florida. On election night, though, both Republicans were declared the winners over their Democrat opponents. Republican Rick Scott was declared the winner over Democrat Bill Nelson for Florida's U.S. Senate seat. Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis was declared winner against Democrat Andrew Gillum, a local mayor. But tonight, everything is in flux. Democrat Gillum, the loser candidate who conceded on election night, has just today officially pulled back his concession to Republican Ron DeSantis. So what's going on? The Democrats are refusing to accept the declared results of the national media. Theirs is a double standard. You say we lost, we'll say we won, and in the words of DNC lawyer Mark Elias, an operative from Clinton Fusion GPS, Christopher Steele fraudulent dossier intended also to disenfranchise us on a national presidential election, we'll do a recount and we will win. So how do they do this? Lo and behold, they find missing ballots. And where do they find these ballots? In deep blue counties run by Democrats in Florida, Broward and Palm Beach. Now, Broward and Palm Beach counties may sound familiar to you because in 2000 there was a hand recount in Palm Beach County because the Democrats didn't want to accept the results of a presidential election. In 2006, there was another recount started by the Democrats. In 2016, another recount, and in 2018, another recount in the same two counties. Now, folks, there are 3,141 counties and county equivalents in the United States. So you tell me how 3,139 counties can get their votes in 30 minutes after the polls close, but not these two. The other counties get it right. There's even a county that suffered a Category 4 hurricane in Florida that was able to turn in their ballots 30 minutes after the election. But these same two deep blue Democrat-controlled counties in Florida, where Republicans won in the two most important races, can't get their act together. But it's not the first time. There's one person who seems to be at the center of this, a Ms. Brenda Snipes, the election supervisor in Broward County, shown here. Now, you may know about Brenda because in 2016, a judge called her out for destroying ballots that benefited her friend, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So election night, Broward reports thousands of votes, 634,000, and now there are reportedly thousands more votes. You're kidding, right? A primer. Every county is supposed to hand in all early voting and absentee ballots within 30 minutes of the polls closing. Most counties already count those ballots before election night. But now in a lawsuit brought against Ms. Snipes, Governor Scott argues that Snipes is refusing to comply with a campaign request for voter and ballot information. At an emergency hearing yesterday in Florida, the governor asked the court to have Ms. Snipes turn over records detailing how she counts and collects ballots. Snipes, as might be expected, is refusing to turn over the records, saying it's inappropriate for a court to intervene this time simply because Scott wants the counting process sped up. What is even more outrageous is that after Snipes destroyed ballots illegally in the 2016 election, her premature destruction of the ballots under court review in a pending lawsuit was described as unlawful and in violation of the Public Records Act. That court in 2016 cited a similar case where the individual was dismissed, saying dismissal under these circumstances is an appropriate sanction. But the court went even beyond saying that about Snipes. They said her violation was twofold. Number one, Snipes violated state and federal retention requirements. And number two, Snipes violated the affirmative responsibility to preserve evidence. Why was this woman not fired? Yet today, Ms. Snipes lives on to mess up yet another or overturn yet another election in Florida. And if that's not enough to infuriate you, after the court's decision about Ms. Snipes, the state of Florida announced it would be monitoring Broward's 2018 election. Now, let me tell you what a mess we're in. There are reportedly thousands of newfound ballots. Each one is 5 pages long. Do you think a woman who doesn't tally or canvass along the way, who loses thousands of ballots, who doesn't want to turn them in 30 minutes after the polls are closed, like 3,139 other counties do, should be trusted? Do you think she should be allowed to view 5 times, because that's how long the ballots are, 5 pages of thousands and thousands of missing ballots? Folks, this is lunacy. Voter fraud is insidious. It causes people to think their vote doesn't matter. But it's worse than that, folks. There are reportedly transcripts now that prove that when the Democrats say they want every vote counted, they mean it. Yes, that's what I said. But it's not just your votes. It's illegals' votes that some lawyers in these canvassing hearings for Democrats want counted. A report out today says lawyers for Democrats Gillum and Nelson are objecting to the rejection of votes cast by non-citizens. So when the lawyer for the Democrats, Mark Elias, famous for his role in the dossier creation that was an attempt to disenfranchise our duly elected president, says he's going down to Florida to win, he should have added, by any means. And that's my open. If you love my opening statements, you'll love my new book, New York Times #1 bestseller, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, The Case Against the Anti-Trump Conspiracy. And here with reaction to my open and all the developing news in the Florida recount drama, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz joins me now. All right, good evening, Congressman.
Good evening, Judge. I think they're still finding ballots for Al Gore down in Broward County. It is a mess down there. It's like a banana republic. And when you've got supervisors of elections that violate transparency laws, that stand in the way of the constitutional rights of Floridians to see information, then you undermine our confidence in the election process. That's why getting the records, getting the ballots, and getting a just result is so important to all of us.
You know, what I find interesting is that in the hearing yesterday, Matt, and I know, Congressman, I should say, and I know that you're familiar with what's going on, when Governor Scott had requested the opportunity to review and to count and find out how they were determining the ballots, then what she says is, you don't have a right to look at this stuff just because you want it sped up. What is that about?
Well, the law in Florida requires the supervisor of elections to make regular reports about how many people voted and in what method they voted. In Broward County, they simply ignored those laws, and then when we tried to use our Public Records Act to get the information, they stood in the way. After the judge ruled that they had to allow us to inspect the information by 7 o'clock that night, I showed up with Governor Scott's lawyers to try to see if we could learn more, and we were stood away. We were told to come back at 10 o'clock the next morning. So time and again, you see the supervisors of elections violating court orders, violating state statutes, and that's the type of thing that allows fraud to grow.
But
the good
Congress,
news, Judge...
Yeah. Go ahead.
The good news is that Ron DeSantis has a margin of victory that is beyond the reach of any fraud. He will be the governor-elect and then the governor of Florida.
Okay, so what
it's
you're
Senator
saying,
Nelson,
Congressman, excuse me, what you're saying is that Congressman DeSantis in the gubernatorial race has more than a half a point ahead of that local mayor, Gillum. Correct. So there's not going to be a recount.
He's actually under.
Congressman,
there will be a machine recount. There will be a machine recount. He is under half a point, but our expectation is there could be, his margin of victory is beyond the scope of any fraud. So he will have a machine recount. We have no objection to that whatsoever. We want every legitimate legal vote to be counted.
Congressman, hang on. I want to ask you this question. If a judge determined, as I just read in my open, that this woman Snipes, who is the election commissioner, what is her official title?
Supervisor of elections.
All right. That this woman Snipes 2 years ago violated state and federal law. He actually cited a case where someone was dismissed under similar circumstances. Would you please tell me why this woman was not dismissed, given the fact that the judge's decision suggests that she should be? And here we have Rick Scott, the governor, who could have dismissed her, who's now suffering because he didn't dismiss her as a candidate for Senate.
Brenda Snipes is either too stupid or too corrupt to be running elections and counting ballots in Florida. The case you laid out is compelling. The reasons for her removal are just irrefutable. Unfortunately, Governor Scott hasn't used his authority to suspend her and put the state supervisor of elections in charge of this office so that we can find what the hell is going on in Broward County. So I think there's plenty basis for removal. There is legal authority that would allow the governor to remove Dr. Snipes, and there is a court order that she violated yesterday. So I think that we should not be waiting around any longer to see if new trucks show up with new ballots or who knows what other shenanigans could be possible. We need to have all the cards face up.
Of course.
And in a transparent process, there won't be fraud. It's when you don't have transparency that fraud can exist.
Clearly, but you're saying new trucks show up? What are you talking about?
Well, no, last night when I stood outside the supervisor of elections office, there were trucks moving things on and off. Now, that could have been totally harmless. It could have been furniture they were moving in the middle of the night. But when I tried to videotape it, there were armed police that said that I was a safety hazard and I was not allowed to videotape what was being moved in and out of the Broward supervisor of elections office at night. All
right, Matt Gaetz, thanks so much for being with us this evening. Still to come, more information on that. And now to yet another surprising turn of events, this one in New Mexico, where my next guest has not yet conceded in her race for that state's southern 2nd District congressional seat. She believes the race is being stolen away. Currently serving in her 4th term in the New Mexico House of Representatives, Yvette Harrell joins me now. Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, you ran in New Mexico, District 2. You've run 4 times. You've been a legislator for 8 years. You're running for an open seat, one that was held by a Republican for the last 16 years. Donald Trump won that district by 10 points. And now you run against a first-time candidate. Her name is Xochitl Torres Small. How do you pronounce her name?
That's pretty close.
Okay. All right. I think we have a photo of her, the candidate that you ran against. Now, all the entities who were representing all the parties, New Mexico Dems for Democracy, on election night declared you the winner. NBC, CNN, MSNBC, the Albuquerque Journal, Town Hall, everybody announced the race and you won. You actually give a victory speech, and then about an hour later, something happened. Why don't you tell us?
Yes, about an hour later, we were contacted by the Secretary of State's office, who said they had magically found 4,000 ballots that had not been counted.
Okay, and this Secretary of State, what is her name?
Maggie Toulouse Oliver.
Okay, and I assume she's a Democrat?
She is a Democrat, that's right.
All right, so, and then within another hour after this Democrat Secretary of State says we've got 4,000 ballots we've got to add, did you get another phone call?
Right, then after that, about an hour and a half later, so within about 2.5 hours after the election was called, we get another call and say they found yet another 4,000 ballots that had not been added to the ballot count.
All right, so now we've got a total of 8,000 new votes after you've already given your victory speech. Now, the question that I think is significant is that when you ask, how did this all happen? There is an individual who's the county commissioner appointed again by Democrats. What was her excuse?
Yeah, the county clerk over there, her excuse was there was just more ballots than they thought. They actually, first they said they forgot them. They did not realize they had them. Although that's very telling, since they knew there was record voter turnout in absentee ballots.
All right, so then the next day they start the recount or add these new ballots, and you would have won by 1,800 votes. Now she's declared the winner by 2,800 votes, correct?
Correct. That is right.
Was this fair and square?
Pardon, what did you say?
Was their call fair and square?
I really don't think that it is, because we have a second congressional district race where everybody goes to bed on Tuesday night thinking that I've been declared the winner, and then suddenly on Wednesday morning they start hearing that there were 8,000 ballots that came up out of nowhere. And no, I don't think that it was. I think that maybe we need to look into it a little bit more.
All right, and what are you going to do when you say that you're going to look into it a little more?
You know, at this point, this is about voter integrity and restoring voter confidence. And we've had over 100 documented complaints about some of the things that happened during this race. And so we need to look into it, shine some light on it, and make sure if there's problems, let's fix them.
Okay, Yvette Harrell, we're going to follow this story. Thanks for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing how it ultimately